All right, so hi everybody, welcome to Drunk Knitting. We are going to do a special social distance episode where I try to teach Kyle how to knit via Zoom. So that should be very interesting because I've never taught anybody by video chat before. We'll see what happens. It's our special Icelandic episode because that's where we were supposed to be teaching Kyle how to knit in Iceland. But instead we're doing it this way. So I'm going to take a shot of, is it called Brennivin? I bought this in Iceland and haven't drank it yet.
Have you tried? You haven't tried that at all yet.
No, Dill drank it and said it was.
That stuff is terrible. It tastes like Bactine.
Oh my God.
This beer is delicious, however.
Oh no, it smells bad, but it's not awful.
All right.
I mean, I'm not enjoying it. It's not as bad as I thought. Okay, but enough of that. We'll switch to whiskey now.
That was fast. You were prepared.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got my whiskey, and then for the next drink, I've got my fancy gin and tonic after that. So we're all set. Now, Kyle, I sent you a package.
I knew it was a package from you because when I opened the bag, a toy fell out. I order coffee, toys fall out, and I imagine that you're getting revenge on your kid. Every time you step on a toy, you're like, this is going in a bag and it's going in the mail.
No, those are actually Dill's toys. He likes sending them with coffee. He sends little dinosaurs or little zombies or monsters.
So I was excited to get this. I have not opened it up. A live unboxing.
Hopefully the wooden needles survived.
It's very well packaged.
Good job, Dill.
There is a drawing of a Viking in there. All right. I'm ready to wreck this.
Okay.
I have no idea how to knit. When I was a kid, my grandmother crocheted, and she was the kind of person who my sister and I would visit her for the weekend, and she would say, what colors do you want in your blanket? And she would crochet us an Afghan, out of those colors while we were visiting for the weekend. And she taught me how to crochet a chain. I made a chain, when I was 8 or 9. But other than that, that is my only yarn experience.
Well, so I'm going to tell everybody something that I've done here. You'll notice your yarn is not a solid dark color. So I know that you probably prefer the darker palettes. When you're learning how to knit, you don't want to learn how to knit with like black yarn or dark gray or anything like that. So what I've done is kind of compromise with Kyle's yarn where I think it's brown and dark green maybe. And so that way he's going to have a little bit of color to help him see his stitches. If you learn how to knit in a very, very dark color, it's going to be extremely difficult for you. So even if you're not a pastels kind of person, start with something either lighter or a multicolor yarn like Kyle has right there.
This is training wheel yarn.
Yes. So first thing, pull your sticks out. All right.
Like Harry Potter.
Now you're going to reach into the center of your yarn and kind of wiggle your fingers around, and you're going to pull it out. It's going to kind of barf on you.
What? That looks like a disaster.
It's not.
Can I do that on either side?
You'll kind of find it. So when you reach in there, you might not feel it on one side, so turn around and find it on the other side. It's like a little lumpy yarn.
Is this it?
Might be. Yeah, get that pull.
Terrible. I see an end.
Yep, there you go.
Whoa, wow. Look at that. All right.
You're just going to kind of shake it loose and get that end.
Okay, so I want to find this end. Now, have you ever had a project that got so tangled that you just abandoned it?
Yes.
So I'm super paranoid about that.
And there's actually this weird group on the internet that I've found. I've never used them, but I know other people that have, that really enjoy untangling yarn. And you can send your tangled mess to them and they will untangle it for you and usually either pay them or give them gifts or treats or something. And
Wow.
right?
Are they like prisoners?
No, it's just these people that enjoy untangling yarn. That's not me.
So what are the chances that my yarn's going to get very tangled while I'm doing this?
It's not likely. You're working with like a nice worsted weight wool. The tangles usually happen with your lace weights, your really, really thin sock yarns, that kind of thing.
So can you tell me anything about this wool?
Yeah, that it's a Plymouth Galway. It should be a Plymouth Galway. It's a nice wool. Um, Anytime you're working with animal fibers, just make sure that when it's finished, you don't machine wash it. It's got to be kind of hand washed, gentle, treat it with some love. Cheap sacrifice to give that to you.
So what does worsted mean?
That's the weight. So worsted is like a medium weight yarn.
Okay. And you said lace weight before, like a tablecloth?
Lace weight is your very, very thin kind of thread yarn. And then bulky would be like some of this Icelandic yarn I have here is a little bit more of a bulky weight.
So is now a good time to tell me the difference between the Icelandic wool and this wool?
Icelandic wool is going to be from sheep that are in Iceland. It's a different kind of wool. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's got kind of a halo on it where you can see some of this kind of thread coming up. It's warmer and it's a little bit more, it's kind of strange to say wool is waterproof, but it is more water resistant than your typical, I don't know if this is American wool or if, this is from Peru. But the sheep are going to be different depending on what region they come from. So Australian wool is a big one, American, of course, and then Peru and other places have sheep. Sometimes they're blends of different wools. And sometimes you get wool blended with other fibers, like wool and silk, that kind of thing. So yeah, the Icelandic wool is very, very unique. Once you touch it, you realize how different it is, and especially once you knit with it and wear it. It's not as soft as what you're going to be working with. It does kind of have this kind of gritty, rough feel, but it's very nice when you knit with it and wear it because it's not as hot as some other wools can be.
When we went to some of the wool stores in Iceland, I recall them showing us the actual fiber of the wool itself and saying that it was perhaps spun differently or not spun, maybe?
Yeah, it's a little bit, some of it's a little bit of a looser spin, but then also, I think a lot of it comes down to just the evolution of those sheep.
Mm-hmm.
They've been isolated on this island and they're not crossbreeding with other sheep like can happen over here. So it's very unique and they've acclimated to that climate. So their top coat is very water resistant. And of course, when you knit with that wool, you're going to get the same effects in a sweater.
Which I guess is why they're popular with fishermen.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I can tell you after wearing one last winter, I know Indiana winters are nothing like Icelandic winters, but it was amazing that I didn't need a coat. I would just wear my alopecia and it was warm and comfortable, but I wasn't sweating and dying because some of the wind still got through. You just didn't really feel it. I encourage everybody to get at least one Lopi sweater at some point and preferably knit your own, but with real Icelandic wool. All right, Kyle, so we're going to start off.
I'm almost finished this beer.
Finish your beer and then we're going to start off.
All right, I wouldn't want to have two hands full of wool and trying to be opening that.
No. All right, so the first step, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Thank God. Okay, so first step, take your needle in your right hand and you are going to wrap from the short end about 20 times around.
Am I starting at the very bottom or doesn't it matter?
Doesn't matter. This is just to measure where you're going to do your slip knot.
I got 13.
Do 20. Keep
more?
wrapping. Yep.
Do they have to be evenly spaced or can I push
No,
it down?
no, no. You can do it like kind of on top of each other, even like that.
All right, 20.
Okay. So then pull it off there, but keep a mark, with your finger.
All right.
There you go. Now, do you know how to tie a slip knot?
It's
Boy Scout.
a regular knot, but then you duck a loop through.
So what I always do is I twist once,
Okay, wait, twist once. Okay.
and then I take my long part that's still attached to the skein, pull that through the big loop,
Gotcha.
and then take the shorter end and pull it tight.
Little brown eel comes out of the cave, swims around and goes back through the cave. All right.
So you're going to put this loop on your needle.
Okay. Should I pull this tight or?
You will when it's on the needle.
All right. It's tight
Yep.
on the needle.
Now, anytime I tell you to tighten a stitch or pull it tight, don't do this because you want it to be able to kind of move back and forth.
Gotcha.
Biggest mistake every new knitter makes is pulling too tight.
Okay.
So we're going to try what's called a long tail cast on. We're going to see how well this works during video. It's going to be a little interesting for me. You're going to hold your needle in your right hand, pointy side kind of facing you. Take your left hand, your thumb and index finger, go in between those two strands of yarn.
Okay.
Take your other three fingers and grab those two strands underneath.
Okay.
Split your fingers open.
Okay.
And then lay this needle down. Just like that. Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so watch what I'm going to do very carefully. I'm going to go under by my thumb,
Under the thumb,
over by my index finger,
over the index finger,
and then down through the loop by my thumb.
down.
All the way down. Keep going. All right. And then drop the yarn off your thumb and pull it tight. A stitch on your needle.
What? Really?
Yeah. So your slip knot counts as one. So now you have two stitches.
I don't know what I did though.
We're going to do it again.
Okay.
So same thing. Thumb and index finger. Grab hold. Split open. Lay down.
Down.
Under by the thumb.
Under by the thumb.
Over by your index finger.
Over by the finger.
And then down through the loop by your thumb.
Down through the loop by the thumb.
Let go.
Let go of the thumb.
Pull tight.
Pull it tight.
Now you've got three.
Really? All right. Under the thumb, over, back through the hole, off the thumb. It kind of looks like a mess though.
It will at first. It's fine.
Okay. Do I have to count these? Like in a perfect world, I guess?
So when you read knitting instructions, they'll say cast on 20, cast on 200, and then you need to count. But what we're doing, you're going to get about 20 stitches, because we're just going to make a square basically.
I want to be perfect already.
You'll hear knitters talk a lot about tension,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just how tight or loose you hold your hands. And everybody is different. That's why most knitting patterns, all knitting patterns should have what's called the gauge. Your gauge swatch will be a 4-inch square, and the designer will say, I got 24 stitches and 22 rows with size 9 needles with this yarn. So you knit a gauge swatch and measure. If it's not 4 inches with that measurement, then you adjust your needle size.
In photography, we would call that a test strip.
Yeah.
So you would, back in the olden days when you were printing your own pictures in the darkroom, you wouldn't know exactly how it was going to look. So you do part of the picture for 10 seconds, part for 15, part for 20, part for 25, and then you develop it and take it out in the light and kind of get the idea of what your general lighting situation should be.
Have you seen that Reddit about Stranger Things?
No. I stopped watching Stranger Things because I realized I liked it better when it was called E.T. and Dark Angel.
Well, so in Stranger Things, one of the kids spends a lot of time in a dark room, like developing pictures.
Okay.
And this person on Reddit was like, I don't understand what they're doing in this room. They put the picture in and it gets clear. I don't know.
So can I push these down the needle or is...
Yep, you can push them down if you need to.
Okay.
When you actually knit, you're going to have them fairly close to the point.
Okay.
Kind of like that. Whenever you're not knitting, you want to push them down so they don't fall off. There's nothing worse than coming in to pick up your knitting and find that your cat has like dragged all your stitches off. So you probably have enough to get started. The biggest thing to always remember when you start learning how to knit is do not knit with the short end.
I think I knitted with the short end.
You haven't yet.
Okay. How would I know?
You need 2 needles to knit with the short end.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm worried that my short end is getting shorter.
It's supposed to. See how mine is?
Oh my gosh. So my short end has gotten short enough to the point where it's really hard to do this anymore.
Yep, so that's good. We're going to call that a good cast on for you. So this is your cast on row. Every time before you start knitting, you just want all these little bumps kind of lined up on the bottom.
Right.
So you don't want them like this, basically. No twisties.
All right, I don't feel terrible. I think I did okay.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, so this is where it gets fun. Because you're
Yours
going
are a little... Mine. Should I stretch them out a little?
No, it's all right. Just, you're going to be kind of seeing this backwards, so it's going to be a little interesting. We'll see how that works. I might need to turn around. So the first thing, you're going to pick up your other needle.
Forgot there was another needle.
Now your blank needle, your empty needle is always in your right hand. All right, so every time you change rows, working needle goes to the left. I'm sorry, the stitches go to the left. Okay, so you're going to insert this needle and kind of make an X. And I'm actually going to turn this around so you can see it a little better.
I think I got it.
Yeah, you go above the row of stitches basically.
My next one will be even better.
The more you knit, the more your hands relax.
So what do I do with this little piece? Where do I hold that?
Ignore it.
Ignore it, okay. So how long is it going to take me to knit an Icelandic sweater?
Honestly, so what a lot of people don't realize is knitting is 2 stitches.
Mm-hmm.
So once you learn how to knit and purl, which are the only 2 stitches in knitting, then you can do anything.
Okay.
I think I knit my first sweater after a couple months of knitting, and it
Okay.
wasn't great. Like I wouldn't do it with nice yarn, but I knit
Okay.
a few. Another trick that I can show you if you wanted to try, like start all over.
You want to start all over.
Okay, slip knot, cast onto both needles, which can get a little tricky, but sometimes for newer knitters this works, where you cast onto both needles.
And that makes it looser. I'm going to pull this needle out.
Yep. So you cast onto both, and then you pull one needle out so you've got nice loose stitches. That's a newbie trick. Casting's on is kind of the worst because you do it once and then like you knit a scarf and then you go to cast on again for your next project and you don't know how because you've only done it one time.
Over, down. Am I counting these?
I mean, you don't need to because we're just kind of making a thing. We're not making a thing. You just want enough to kind of get the hang of what you're doing. But not so many that you get frustrated with just one row. So I always say between 10 and 20 stitches to start.
So I got 7. 7 and a disaster.
When I first started knitting, my mom taught me the knit cast on, which I think is harder. And I got so frustrated so quickly. And then I took my knitting to Girl Scout overnight camp and everybody made fun of me and called me a grandma. So I didn't knit again for like 10 years.
Ah.
I'm going to move on to my gin drink.
Right.
Put some ice in here. Got jalapenos and cucumber and Scottish gin.
All right. I'm just going to call this like okay. Right?
All right.
I'm going to pull this needle out of here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter which one, right?
Nope. So you've got nice loose stitches now.
So, yeah. So this one, I just want this little string completely out of the way, right?
Yeah, just ignore it.
I mean, that's what screwed me up last time because it got knitted right into my stuff. Okay. So in here. So I guess I'm not sure which side this string should be on.
Okay.
Should my empty needle go underneath it?
Yeah, so the empty needle kind of goes.
Yeah, okay, I think I got that.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. And then this stitch comes off.
Then you wrap around, down, and you're catching the yarn that you just wrapped. And so now the yarn that you just wrapped should be in front of you.
Not sure if I've got it, but it's going.
Okay.
Thing is happening.
And then you scooch the old stitch off, drop it.
I think this is starting to look like a sweater. And it's okay. There's a lot of space between these stitches, right? You know?
There will be at first, yep. Like it'll kind of look like this at first.
Oh, okay. I think I think that last one's fucked up. Can I say that on this show?
Yep, we cuss.
So can I put that stitch back on there?
Yeah, you should be able to.
So I think what I want to see this like done with a clothesline so that I can See up close what's happening.
I do have so occasionally when I teach, I've used these.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to see.
They're very helpful. My friend Kyle made this for me, a different Kyle. Kira and Kyle, you've gotten drunk with them. Let me know when you get to your last stitch and I'll tell you what to do.
All right. I think burn it is going to be your answer. Oh, looks like the little string has been completely subsumed in the knitting. It just got knitted into there somewhere. I hope it wasn't important because it's gone now.
It's not that important.
Does the little string have a name?
I don't think so.
Dennis.
That's going to take the knitting world by storm and nobody's going to know where it came from that we call the little string Dennis. It's a thing. Okay, so once you have knit your last stitch, you have your hands like this, right?
I do.
You swap hands, just like this. So empty needle goes to your right hand.
Right.
The needle with yarn on it goes to your left, and you want to straighten out these stitches so everything is on the bottom again.
Which way should it be pointing?
All your stitches, like your knitted fabric, should be facing down, like that.
Oh, got it.
And I'm going to show you something that's very, very important for every new knitter. When you start your next row, something that's very easy to do is to make an extra stitch. And that happens when you've accidentally wrapped your yarn like this and you knit into this guy twice. So always make sure that your yarn is down and that when you start knitting, see if you can see it, you knit above that stitch just like that, not into it. If you knit into it, you're going to do an accidental decrease and your thing's going to go like this as you get. And you don't want that. You don't want to knit any more stitches than you have to right now.
Well, I don't want to make a sweater that's wider on the bottom than the top.
Right. Now you have, how many Lopi sweaters do you have?
I think I have 3. So Trillian bought me one when my wife, Trillian, bought me one when we were in Iceland the first time, and it has like a star pattern on it. And then 2 people mailed me sweaters.
Were they Icelanders?
So one of them was a woman whose husband had been in the Air Force, and they were stationed in Keflavik, and he had this sweater, and it's like kind of a Christmas sweater, and it had just been in a trunk in her attic or whatever since they moved back.
Well, because I'm hoping it's like, you know, Dobby's sock in Harry Potter, like Dobby gets a sock and he's a free elf. I'm hoping if an Icelander like gives you a sweater, you get to become a citizen automatically.
Yeah, so just once I started posting on my blog about Icelandic sweaters, people just started sending me their sweaters.
So if an Icelander sends you one, then you get to move there, right?
Or I guess I don't know if they're Icelanders. They might have just been people.
Yeah. See, they probably know that. They probably know the Dobby sock rule of the citizenship test. There aren't that many people in Iceland, so they have to be careful about how many of us they let in.
Probably looks good on your citizenship application if you can knit.
Probably. They probably test you.
So people who are watching this, what are they doing right now while we're talking? Are they just knitting too?
They're probably knitting too, or I don't know, maybe making fun of us or thinking that we're cool. We'll have both spectrums.
So I definitely have some fucked up stitches in here.
That happens. You'll probably have some that are like not complete, and that happens when people kind of do this and they don't toss the old stitch off, they just start knitting again.
Okay.
You always want to make sure you're tossing that old stitch off.
Probably got a few of those.
So basically, like what you're doing in knitting is moving needles from, or moving your stitches from one needle to the next. And as you do that, each stitch like drops down and you get this fabric right here.
I mean, in a perfect world, I understand that. Some of my stitches seem to be kind of backwards. Like maybe they're underneath another stitch when they shouldn't be, or they're wrapped around each other.
I always tell people, I'm like, don't expect perfection at first, just keep going. And the more you do, the easier it'll get. I mean, probably like photography, right? Like your first pictures weren't composed correctly or developed correctly, and you just keep doing it. And you don't sweat like the bad pictures, you just push forward.
Yeah, I think a problem with photography is people think they can just sort of buy their way into it. Because it's easy to do, right? It's like, I'm going to get this really expensive camera and then my pictures will be great. But I photographed Michael Zulli once, the comic book illustrator. He illustrated the Wake issue of Sandman and a bunch of other things. He's very sort of like a Renaissance painter kind of guy who does comic books sometimes. And it was at a gallery show that he was having. And there was this little girl who came up to him and said, "Mr. Zulli, can I show you my portfolio?" And he said, "Yes, yes, yes." And so she handed it to him and he looked through it and he said, "Do you want some advice?" He said, "Learn everything there is to know and then forget it." And then he walked away. And I was like, wow, he was kind of a jerk to that little girl. And then I went outside to do his picture and he's like, "I only have 5 minutes for this picture." And so as I'm walking down the street with him, I'm like, my brain is like thinking, all right, those lights over there, I'll do this if I set my camera to this particular setting, and I can put the other light over here and that'll make this thing happen. And all the while I was talking to him. And then while I was taking the picture, I realized that I was doing exactly what he had told that little girl, that you learn everything about your craft and then you get it to the point where you don't think about it anymore, where it just happens in the back of your mind and you can work on the important stuff. And for me, the important stuff was, making sure this picture happened and talking to him, and all the technical stuff just figured itself out in my brain because my brain had learned everything and not forgotten it, but put it in a place where it happened by remote, without any intervention of my own. And it kind of seems like you're doing that. You're knitting and talking and worrying about other stuff.
Oh yeah. Like knitting for me is just kind of this background thing that my hands need to do. And I always blame it on growing up with like deaf people, because you talk with your hands so much that my hands constantly need to be moving. So if I don't have knitting in my hands, like I obnoxiously talk with my hands, people point it out all the time. So I always have knitting with me, so I have something to do with my hands. Otherwise I would smoke or,
Uh-huh.
I would just be doing something probably irritating with my fingers or my hands or tapping them or I don't know what. So I have to knit.
Your mom is also like an Olympic fencer, right?
She is, yeah, she's an amazing fencer. She's still been fencing through COVID. Like they just started kind of bringing that back.
Masks under masks.
Yeah, I mean, basically. And I'll tell you what a badass she is. She had double knee surgery because she wanted to qualify for World one year. And she knew like the way the timeline worked out, she could have this surgery on her knees. And then all she had to do was stand on the mat, get taken out, but as long as she stood on the mat, like the points would work out to where as long as she competed, she would go to World at this point. And if she got the surgery at this point, then she would be fully healed by World. So she was like, okay, so she gets this knee surgery right before World and gets on the mat and literally with bleeding knees takes silver because she couldn't stop herself from like fighting back.
And that's sort of like, there was that famous play in roller derby where nobody moved, which I don't really understand, but I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by it, where somebody realized they could win by not doing anything.
Yeah, I think they've stopped that now, which is great. Like made roller derby kind of more fun again. I mean, I miss fast derby. Like that was always fun for me. But I can appreciate like the strategy that they're doing now. But I do miss skating as fast as possible and just turning left and, trying not to die. All right, how are we looking?
I think some of my stitches have got under my other stitches.
Hold your needle up. Let me see.
I'm almost at the end, so you can almost see this entire catastrophe. There's just not enough space to get I guess my last stitch got really tight. Was that my slip knot? I can't tell.
At this point, it's going to be stitches. You're past the slip knot. Your slip knot's gone.
So it's super tight. And I'm like down to the itty bitty little ends. Oh, and I think maybe I've been knitting too much on the very tiny little end and making my stitches tight.
Yep. So each row of your knitting is as wide as your needle. Okay, so if you knit too much on this part of the needle, that's how big your stitch is going to be. That's why there are different size needles.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I can see some crossovers right there and some issues where you didn't finish a stitch.
I don't seem to have 2 rows of stitches like you do.
We're just going to push through.
Really? I was going to start over again.
You can do that too, whatever makes you happy. I can see what you're doing is, let's see if I can recreate it.
You have multiple rows of stitches and I don't. Some of mine are just like this. These are just loops around the needle right there.
Yep.
There's no stitch.
That is called a yarn over, and it's actually an intentional increase.
All right, I'm going to undo this.
Yeah. Start over. Trillian knits too, doesn't she?
Yes.
So you do have somebody in the house that can help you.
I also have a knot in here. Uh-oh. What do I do with the knot? Do I just pull it? I want to pull it really tight.
Well, if you pull it, does it come undone? Is it a slip knot?
I don't know. Maybe it is my slip knot.
It's probably your slip knot. It's very hard to get an actual knot in your knitting. I'm gonna eat one of these licorice things that are 3 years old.
Oh, I think now I have an actual knot. That was my slip knot. I pulled the wrong thing out. Can I just pull it tight?
Yeah.
There we go. Now it's just a lump. Oh, but I could use that for my new slip knot. There we go.
Yep.
I'm gonna mark my new slip knot. All right. Wait a minute. What was I doing with the slip knot? Did I put it on anything?
Yeah, you make a slip knot and put it on your needle.
Put it on my needle. Okay, there we go. Pull one of these. All right. Oh, I was gonna do. I was gonna do 2 needles, but I'll just do it looser this time. I'll do it the right. How's your drink?
My drink's good. Just drink and relax your hands. You look like an Icelander right now.
I figure this gives me time to work on my beard. Because when I went there last time, I was totally outclassed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Mickey's beard was a thing of beauty.
All of them. All of them had these amazing beards. Uh-oh, that got loose.
What are you most looking forward to seeing when we go back?
That's interesting. I'm most interested in meeting people. And so I really liked hearing some of the stories that people were telling about knitting with their families and their memories that they had. So those, to me, were the most interesting things. I mean, the landscape's beautiful, but I like the idea of having Icelanders who I know,
Yeah.
feeling like I've been part of that place.
It was interesting how friendly people were.
Yeah,
Like it was a very welcoming country to tourists, which
absolutely.
is great.
Yeah, everybody was super nice.
Because I haven't done a ton of travel, but I mean, I've traveled. And I would say that's probably the friendliest country I've been to.
It's very friendly.
Let's just push through and see what happens. So straight down.
Yeah, so I was going around the other way.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
You got it.
Yay! This calls for a celebration.
Yay, Scottish gin. I will say this about Iceland. Every place I travel, I regret not bringing more booze home, but not necessarily with Iceland. Because this is not the worst thing I've ever had, but it's not pleasant.
So upstairs, I'll bring it out for the next episode of Drunk Knitting that we do. The first time I went to Iceland was in the year 2000, and I bought a bottle of Brennivin at the airport, and I still have it. Because we opened it, and we drank some of it, and we were like, dear God, this is horrible.
We should make Dill do a drunk reviews and testing with this. Where they have to do something with it. I don't know what yet. They did one where he bought this beer on eBay that was like made by an ex-president's brother or something, Billy beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought a can of Billy beer and gave it to a political consultant that I know.
No, they drank it.
And, well, Jimmy Carter was president in 1976.
Yeah.
So Billy was kind of his embarrassing brother who people would, offer him money to do dumb stuff and he would just do it. And so he created no amount of headaches for poor Jimmy Carter. And one of them was to make this like really crappy beer. So what do I do with the last stitch? I do the same thing with
You just knit it.
just knit it. That's my slip knot.
Yeah. And now your slip knot is a stitch and you've knitted.
Okay.
Let's see what this one looks like. Much better. That's a row of knit stitches, dude.
Okay. So the last time I was throwing an extra loop onto there.
Yep. And that was probably making it even tighter for you.
They were super tight. They were super close together. So there's actually space in between these.
Yeah.
So let's
So
see.
now you can swap hands.
And then this looks easier because my little one's on the other end now. And
Yeah.
Can I wrap it around my needle to get it out of the way, or would that be a problem?
Yeah, or you can cut it. You want to leave a little bit of length because whenever you're done, you'll kind of sew it in to make it go away.
I feel like, the Buddha when he was sitting under the tree and thought his thought. That like, oh, now I understand where this thing is going.
Dude, now I need to watch that Keanu Reeves movie.
What? John Wick 3?
No, when he was Buddha.
What? Oh my God. That sounds terrible.
It's pretty awful, but
All of the John Wick movies are great.
Well, yeah. Nobody warned me though the first time I saw it and I sobbed. And like Dill was sitting next to me and he was like,
Yeah.
he was like, I would kill everyone.
So Trillian was watching this indie like romance movie, which I was like, this is freaking terrible. And this guy gets invited to dinner by his ex-girlfriend. And he's like, okay, I'll go. And her new boyfriend is Keanu Reeves. And it's so
Oh.
playing himself. And so this guy, there's like no way he can compete with Keanu Reeves, you know, because he does everything perfectly and, you know, he looks awesome and he has all this money. So I enjoyed that movie.
I have not seen the movie, but I've seen that clip.
Okay, it's great. So now it looks like I actually might have 2 stitches.
Yeah. Yeah, those are rows.
Rows.
Rows. Your stitches are on the needle. Your rows are what comes down.
All right. Let me switch hands.
You're doing this, Kyle Cassidy.
And so my slip knot is like moving from one end to the other. Is that
Well, your slip knot's this little thing right here on the bottom.
Yeah.
Or actually this little thing.
Oh, you know, and I am so sorely tempted to knit with it all the time.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And always make sure, you know, when you're knitting, your yarn's in the back.
And it looks like it's really easy to just knit this little end into stuff too.
It is.
They should do something about that. They should invent a knitting that doesn't have this little string that's confusing me.
But see, the farther you get, like it goes away. It's just down here now.
So it's like one of those things you just have to suffer through.
Yeah. Your first couple rows are always the worst because it's all twisted around. I had a friend who she had learned, I taught her a couple knit stitches and she decided basically her first project was going to be a sweater for her boyfriend at the time.
Wow.
And so she cast on 220 stitches in the round and started knitting and didn't realize that she had twisted it on her first round. So she had made like basically a Mobius strip, you know, and she brought it to me after she had knit about 10 inches and said, "Can you fix it?" And I'm like, no. And she never knit again.
So can I knit a scarf with this skein of wool, or is it not nearly enough?
You could knit a cowl with that. So, you know, like a short scarf that's...
Okay.
And all you need to do to knit a cowl is knit a short scarf and then sew it together.
This might be a problem here. This last stitch looks a little...
Flip your yarn over the other side. No, that's fine.
Okay. So buying machine knit sweaters and taking them apart for the yarn, is that a thing?
Yeah. Not always machine knit, but you go to Goodwill and like you buy ugly things for the nice yarn.
Okay.
There was only one time I could not stand to do it, and I went to Goodwill and I saw this beautiful, like really nice, gorgeous yarn, and I was gonna buy this $3 sweater with $50 worth of yarn in it. Yeah, you're totally knitting. Looks awesome. And it had one of those like handmade tags inside that said "Made with Love by Grandma" and a date, and I was like, I can't take this apart.
My Afghans all have those from my grandmother.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
So I need to watch this Drunk Reviews and Testing where they drink the Billy beer.
You do. I don't know if he's made it or if he just filmed it. He's getting back into that too, which will be really fun.
So I want to do you want to describe Drunk Reviews and Testing for people who haven't seen it?
Drunk Reviews and Testing is where my husband and his friends get drunk and they do very stupid things. One time they decided to test fireworks in a cupcake maker. Another time they decided to test fireworks in an easy bake oven. One time they got drunk and made boozy ice cream. And literally I was walking around my house peeling boys off my bathroom floor. Like they all got so drunk off this boozy ice cream that they passed out. No, what's another one? They did one, they haven't released it yet, where they tested, my parrot doesn't like certain food, so they tasted all of her food to see if it actually tastes different.
Okay.
So yeah, they get drunk and do really, really dumb things.
I saw one where they dropped a beer keg off a forklift.
Yeah, we're hoping OSHA doesn't ever see that one. They did one where they did it was like an older workout video, and it had like 6-minute abs or something. So it said if you did all these ab workouts, you would have abs. So they did them all at once while drinking. It was pretty great. Yeah, so they get drunk and they do stupid things. And he usually enlists me as like to hold his camera. And during the fireworks and cupcakes one, they had like the safety shield, and they were setting off fireworks on the other side of the safety shield, and they were all behind the safety shield. And at one point I realized like I'm on the other side of the safety shield with the camera, and none of us are really like pyro people. We don't know what we're doing. We're in like literally in my suburban backyard. And I'm like, why?
Their safety gear never looks like real safety gear because they're like wearing football helmets or something.
Yeah, yeah. No real safety gear. They just, yeah. So yeah, he's getting back into that because he misses it. And you know, we took the baby break, but now that baby can kind of fend for herself a little better, we can start drinking again, blowing stuff up. Which I just realized it's her name on my little Zoom thing too from her dance classes.
What was the other name?
Fatty McBigcock. That looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we literally, he was drinking with his buddies when this all started, and we had a Zoom dance class, and we joined the Zoom dance class, and it was Fatty McBigcock is joining the class for mommy and me, toddler time.
It went viral, right?
Yeah, of all the things to go viral for.
Retweet that?
What?
J.K. Rowling retweet that? Somebody retweeted that.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling did. And everybody was like, oh, and things that never happened. I'm like, who would make that up? Who would fake mommy and me, Fatty McBigcock, joining a dance class? Like, it was so embarrassing.
Only people who had never seen drunk reviews and testing.
Right. And like, this is why I can't make mom friends, you know? Because we're always blowing up cupcakes, and Fatty McBigcock is joining the dance class.
I'm interested in trying to like kind of make a useful thing.
So what I would do, let's see, because you and I are using the same needles and yarn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would cast on, let's say 40 stitches, and just knit until you run out of yarn.
Okay.
When you're almost out of yarn, chat with me. I'll show you how to bind off. Okay. Now the rule for binding off.
So what if that's just my homework for next time?
That is.
I'll knit this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll meet again with more beer.
And I'll show you how to bind off.
Yes.
Now, when you get to the end, here's the very important thing. To bind off, you need enough yarn left that you can go hold it across, I would say 3 times, okay. 2 to 3 times. And that's kind of what we call playing yarn chicken, right? Because to bind off, you need this yarn.
Okay.
So if you don't have enough, you do yarn chicken to bind off.
You gotta stretch everything or tighten all the knots a little bit.
Yeah, so let's say make sure you have enough yarn to wrap it over or fold it over 3 times.
Okay.
And that should be good.
All right.
So pull all that off, cast on 40, and just knit.
I'm gonna show my wife this first.
Well, yeah, show her.
This is exciting.
I'm super proud of you, Kyle.
Thank you. It was really.
Let me do one more shot of Icelandic mouthwash. It's the smell. Like, the taste isn't terrible. It's this smell.
It tastes like Bactine, really.
The taste isn't awful. What's the one that's supposed to take like black licorice? Like that I would like.
Oh, no, that's any of the anise stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
The Icelandic vodka is fine.
I'll get that next time. And once we do this book, then we're going to go to Norway, and then I want to do Scotland and England as well and do their sweaters.
What kind of beard will I need for Scotland?
I feel like they all do just the rough.
All right. I'll be ready for that.
Yeah.
Itching the heck out of me.
Norway's got the big beards. Ireland has the nice trim beards, and then I feel like Scotland's just the gruff.
I'll have to do it in the proper order where I can
Yeah.
manscape down. But I was jealous of everybody's beard in Iceland.
Yeah. Same. I mean, okay. Well, so we are signing off. Kyle's got his homework. He's going to make a thing.
Make a thing.
Yeah. It'll be pretty impressive. We're going to talk more Iceland until we can get there. It'll be great. Cheers.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody. And thanks for teaching me how to knit, Joan.
You're welcome.